Step in my dojo, you
Step in my dojo, you
step in my
Hey. Yo, what up? Hey. Hello. Welcome. At Producer Dojo, we have a constant stream of live events waiting for you to come get your learn on. Sign up at the link below to make sure you don't miss out. Okay, so after all that order, it's time for a little bit of chaos. I'd like to introduce psychedelic mastermind and sensei extraordinaire Chris, aka Cryptochronica, who has a fantastic lesson about how to use randomness and chaos in your sound design and composition process. If you're finding your music's a little bit stiff, this lesson might be just the thing to help you think and create outside the box. So big up Chris, Cryptochronica, our head sensei at the dojo. Please make some noise in the chat and let's get ready to get random.
Dojo fam, Cryptochronica here, coming at you from the Producer Dojo Summit, and I am so excited to be here with you today. Today we're going to talk about curating randomicity in our workflow. So in the Producer Dojo, we talk all the time about getting the best use out of our time and out of our focus. These are two resources that are always dwindling in the producer's life, and so being able to preserve your time and preserve your mind space or your focus are really powerful techniques and tools. Essentially, this is why we use 128s, this is why we have daytime and nighttime sessions, and why we use our user library in order to store our ingredients, so that way when the time comes to cook our track, we have a bunch of prepped ingredients ready for our cook session, or our daytime session. Today I want to take that concept a little bit further, and we're going to talk about how you can let Ableton spew out a bunch of random ideas for you, and then you only have to apply one very simple sequencing process to those random ideas to create really dope music. Essentially, music has one ingredient that separates it from noise. If I just go dum with my mouth, that doesn't really mean anything. If I go dum, dum, even that, in this contextless space, it doesn't actually make any sense. It's just random noises that I'm making with my mouth. If I were to apply this one ingredient to them, however, if I was going to apply repetition to those noises and start going dum, 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 boom, dum, 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 boom, suddenly we have a groove, we have a beat, and we have music. My point with this is that you can apply repetition to anything in an intelligent way and turn nonsense noise into music. And we're going to look at that today. So first, I want to start with this incredible sequencing formula called the iterative sequence, whereby you create beats following iterations. So an iterative sequence is when you start with either a bar time period or a half bar time period and iterate a beat in sequences. So let's go ahead and say that this first section, this first idea, is going to be our iteration 1. Now, to have the iterative sequence iterate, I'm going to duplicate over iteration 1 and make one change to this new iteration, to this new duplicate. So what I'm going to do in this context, I'm going to pull this kick back here, and maybe we'll make a change like this. We'll do a couple changes here, and we'll put in one more kick over there. Sweet, so I'm holding Option as I drag and drop, and that's how I created that duplicate. So essentially, we now have a 2-bar iteration. I'm going to duplicate this iteration 2 over and make one change to the new sequence, and in this case, we'll put in another kick right here. Now I'm going to take this entire period, this 4-bar period, duplicate it over and make a change to our new sequence. And what we will do is we will pull this kick right here. Yeah, right there. That looks good. So I can move along confidently with my production when I know that I'm following this mathematical sequencing formula, because what happens when you follow it is you begin to build an internal grammar in the bars of your music. And what I mean is that this bar is communicating, or this whole chunk of time is communicating with this whole chunk of time, but they're not complete repetitions. There's a variation from one bar to the next, which is going to keep it feeling fresh. And this period of time is communicating with this period of time because they're duplicates of one another. It appears again here, and it appears again here. And so this is going to help our listener understand with just one listen how our beat is causing them to move. Now, once you start to iterate your entire composition following this sequencing, from the kick and the snare, to the hats and the percussion, and then to the subs, and then to the music, and then to the actual automation, processing, and modulation on each of those elements. You get this really intricate, integrated kind of track where everything is communicating with everything else in a grammatical way, and it makes sense to our listener. So let's do the same thing now with our hi-hats. We'll start with a single bar time period here, and we're going to just make, let's do a half bar. So I'm going to select our half bar, duplicate it over, and we're going to make a change. In this case, I'm going to create another voice. Now I'm going to select the entire time period, duplicate it over, we're going to make a change, and we're going to work subtractively. We're going to take out a voice. Take the entire time period, duplicate it over, let's go ahead and make a change, and we will put in another one over there. Now I'm going to select the whole time period, and after 4 iterations, that's it. We have our loop here. So I can live with that. Let's do this one more time just to make sure the whole process is crystal clear. I'm going to take this tambourine hat and we're going to put it, let's go ahead and start with iteration 1, and select the entire time period, duplicate it over. Let's make a change. I'm going to pull this over here. Let's select the entire time period, duplicate it over. We're going to make a change and we're going to remove this one. Select the entire time period, duplicate it over. Let's make a change. We'll put this one in over here. Sweet, easy. We're not going to spend too much time focused on the minutia of this process. I can be sure that it's going to work, and I can be confident that it's going to work because I'm following this iterative sequencing. Let's check out our beat to make sure we have something that's worth listening to. Cool. So you can see how it makes sense pretty quickly. Now, I want to talk about creating randomicity in this process. That way we can apply the iterative sequence to random noises and turn randomicity into music. So for the first exercise here, we're going to hop over into session view, and I want to show you something called follow actions. Essentially, follow actions are where you program a process to take effect in session view from one clip to the other, and we can set this to have a random component. So I'm going to select all of these different clips here, and the way I discovered these clips is I went on to Splice Sounds and I typed in the BPM and the key of this track, F sharp minor at 135 BPM, and I just started downloading things. I wanted to see what was going to come out, and that kind of open-minded randomicity of just saying yes to anything that the search engine would throw at me is part of this process as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these different icons here, all of these different audio clips. We're going to open up our little arrow, which lives over by the clip name. And we're going to activate our follow actions. So what follow actions are is going to let us trigger these clips in a sequence that Ableton programs for us. So I'm going to select all the different clips. I've activated the follow actions. I've unlinked this, this linked and unlinked setting. And now they're going to go to next at whatever this rate is. So this rate is a bar, a quarter bar, and a 16th note of a bar. So if I have 0, 0, 1, that's 1/16th note. 001 is going to be 1/16th note, 002 is going to be an 8th note, 003 is a 12th note, etc., until it moves up these different brackets. So let's go ahead and set these to go from one clip to the next at a 16th note rate, so 001, and see what comes out here. Let's go ahead and listen. Cool, so this is cool. We're getting a bunch of chops happening from each one of these things, but what I'm not liking about it is A, there's no randomicity, and B, the loop is starting over in the same place every single time the clip starts. So if we want the sound to move through the entire clip, chopping in a different place as it moves along this entire section, we can select all the clips and trigger our legato. Now our playhead is going to move through all the clips, chopping in a different position of the clip itself. Cool, we're starting to get somewhere. That's sounding pretty cool. I have a resampling channel here, and we are going to arm it, so that way we can take information from our track 21 over here. So let's go ahead and get one iteration of these and just record it quickly. Nice, I'm sure I can find something to do with that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply randomicity to this process as well, so that they're not just playing from one clip to another. I'm going to select all of our clips in here, and we are going to set them to another follow action target. In this case, we're going to pick any, which means that any of the clips can trigger any of the other ones, including themselves. If you were to pick other, that means any clip can trigger any other clip, but not itself. So let's go ahead and do any, and see how this is going to affect our sound. We'll start recording, and let's go. Cool, so what's happening is our brain is struggling to make sense of all of this random noise. It's cool, it's glitchy, it's fun, but it doesn't have the sense of music to it where my mind can follow what's going on. So once we apply the iterative sequence to this, it's going to be something useful. And we'll get there in just a second. Let's restore our volume. Go back to 0. Okay, I guess I have to lift you up back to 0. There we go. Oh yeah, we gotta open that up. There's our 0. Sweet. Okay, cool. So now I want to do that again. This time I'm gonna stop all the clips and we're gonna have them do the same thing, but at an 1/8 note rate. So let's go ahead and start our recording and we'll press play. Ooh, I like that rate. So 4-8 bars should be plenty. Now, where this process starts to get a little bit more curated and refined is when you actually remove the sounds that you don't like that much and double up on the ones that you want to occur more in the whole sequence. So I'm going to stop these and we're going to audition some of them one at a time just to make sure that we are taking out any of them that are kind of obnoxious. And I do find that when you're doing this follow action chopping, it works better when you're using sounds within the same family. So I would do this on all breaks, or I would do this on all vocals or on all violins, but I wouldn't want guitars, synths, violins, and basses all in the same chop sequence because it gets to be a little bit too random and the movement is not as coherent as you would like. So let's go ahead and find a couple of these that we really, really like that we might want to have happen a bit more. That one's fantastic. That one's okay. That one's kind of fun. Yeah, I was hearing this one. It didn't work for me. This one wasn't working for me either. That's cool. Ooh, we got some cashmere in the house. This one's got a bass in it. I'm going to get that out of our family here. That one's dope, but I really, really liked this first one. So with this first one, I'm going to hold Option as I drag and drop it down, which creates that duplicate. And we're going to do a reverser. And then I'm going to take that same one from the top, and we're going to hold Option as we drag and drop it again. And this time, I'm going to pitch it up 12 semitones and set the warp mode to, I suppose, texture without any flux and a short grain size. Let's see how that sounds. It's a little bit harsh. Let's go down 12 semitones. Check that baby out. That's dope. Let's go ahead and do that same thing. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply it by 2. So it's a nice little quickie. Oh, whoops. Let's divide it by 2. So it's a nice little quickie. Multiplying it will stretch it out and make it longer. Hell yeah, that's a good one. Cool. So the more times you refine this process by finding the ones that you like and doubling up on their frequency, the more they're going to happen, and therefore you're going to start to curate this search. Let's go ahead and reverse this last cashmere friend and then do one more. This last cashmere friend and then do one more sequence of all of these. We'll go ahead and trigger our follow actions here, and we'll have one side be any and the other side will be first. So that way it goes back up to the very first one, and now we can toggle between the two positions with this slider arrow. Let's go ahead and check it out. Start our recording, press our play. I changed that to 12 notes. Let's go back to 16ths. Okay, getting pretty crazy there. So how can we apply some iterative sequencing to this so that it becomes something that is musical and useful? Now, I think my favorite one was number 3. So that's going to be the one that we're going to use. I'm going to copy this and transfer it over into our session view. Now, in here, I have some music already made. We're going to come to that in a second when we start talking about randomicity in macro editing. But first, let's go ahead and paste a new audio channel over here so that we can paste our recorded sequence. Boom, we've got that. And let's also go ahead and create another channel here so that we can deactivate this one. Now, if I was going to turn this into a sequence that makes sense, I would have to apply some repetition to it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find a little chunk that we like in our audition here. That's great. I'm going to use that little chunk of time to start off our sequence here. Come here, little friend. We're going to paste that right like so. And now we're going to go ahead and select our time period, duplicate it over, and we're going to want to make a change. Now perhaps what our change is, because I see that we have some chords here, is we take some of this out and we'll grab another little bit of the time and pull that down. So cool. So now we have our second iteration. Let's take the entire time period, duplicate it over, and we're going to make a change. In this case, I'm going to select this chunk of sound and we're going to replace this one right here and get that out of the way. We'll select our entire time period. We're going to duplicate it over, and you guessed it, we're going to make a change. So let's go ahead and grab this time period and we'll just pull it in because it looks interesting, and then I'll clear the chords out as well. Sweet. Let's see what our work has spewed out here. And I do have a bass line. It might not work with this bass line, but that's part of the fun. Cool. Cool, yeah, that last one doesn't work so well. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. It's kind of a junka. So we'll go ahead and throw that out of the rotation here, and that looks like it's a bit much. We'll just do it like this, and I'm gonna clear that last one out. Nice. I'm going to activate my metals as well, so that way we have some cymbal crashes in our music. Cool. So now the next thing that I want to talk about is doing this in drums. We've looked a little bit about how you can make melodic Mudpies using these chop sequences, and very regularly I'll do that on breaks and on fills and on drum sounds as well. Also trap snares, you guys. Using that chop sequencing on different snares, oh, delightful. Cool. All right, so now I want to talk about this as it pertains to fills. So what I've done here is I've loaded up a drum rack with a bunch of different toms, and then I've loaded up another drum rack with a bunch of different sort of colorful percussion samples here. And if I play the lowest note, I'm going to get a single sample out of this. And what we want to do is we want to have Ableton create a little assembly line of drum ideas that we can use as fills in our track. So I'm going to legato this out, and if I play this sound, that's all it's doing. Not that interesting. I mean, it's a cool sample, but it's not that interesting. So what we need to do is set this bottom note out, the very lowest note of my entire drum rack, to keep re-triggering. So I'm going to come over to my MIDI effects, and we're going to apply the arpeggiator. And now this is going to re-trigger at whatever rate we set it at. Let's set our gate to 100 so it plays the whole sample. So if I set this to 16th notes, it's going to play that sample at a 16th note rate. Cool. It's liable to drive you crazy, but it's relatively cool. So where this gets really exciting is when you open up the number of steps, and now this is going to trigger up and down the cells of the different drum rack. Cool, so we're starting to get a lot of different samples run up and down these drum cells. However, there's still not a level of randomicity here, and that's what we're here to talk about, is how to curate that. So I'm going to apply some of that random element that makes things exciting. We're going to pull in a random MIDI device, and I'm going to turn up the chance to 100%. And now I'm going to start to record the drums, and we're going to just see all of these little drum cells activate at a random rate. And as I record, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the rate, the offset, and the number of steps to get variations throughout the entire process. Let's go ahead and start our recording. Just chaos, right? Why did it stop? You're supposed to loop, my friend. You're supposed to loop. Okay, cool. So anyway, you see how that works. Now I have a bunch of drum stuff here waiting to be used. So how would I use something like this? What I would do is I would take the entire waveform and I would loop it, and then I would stretch it out for the entirety of my composition like so, threading it through the entire track, waiting to be pulled into existence, and then I will just deactivate it. Now, if I need to put in a fill somewhere, say right here, all I have to do is reactivate the sample. And if I don't like this particular sample, let's go ahead and audition this and check it out in the context of our mix and see if we like this or not. So I don't really love that first part of it, so I'm going to get rid of that first part. I do like this second part. Let's find another section where I can demonstrate how I would make this work for me. So I'm going to create a little block right here on our downbeat. Let's take our drum beat and let's copy that all the way across the entirety of our composition here, as we would in the arrangement. And now right here where we have our new fill, I'm going to take out this kick and snare, and this is going to kind of be like a fill on the downbeat, which is a nice unexpected way of playing with people's expectations. And now we have this sound. Yeah, it's terrible. It's not working at all. So if you ever want to audition a new sample, once you've activated loop on your clip, you can scrub around and find another bit of audio that is more appealing. Yeah, it's a little bit chaotic, a little bit too much. Let's find this one. There we go. That's a winner. Cool. Now we could do that again with our other group of fills, and I want to show you one other element of randomity that we can apply to this process. So I'm going to copy my arpeggiation and my random MIDI plugin over to this new drum rack, which is full of different toms. I'm going to take my lowest note and pull that up over there as well, and we're going to be able to start recording here in just a second. First thing is let's actually create our loop. That's a Command-L hotkey, everyone. Now let's go ahead and start to record this. However, with this one, as I start to record this, I'm going to apply one other feature of randomity to this whole process. I have a random glitch maker here, which has got some downsampling, it's got a variety of erosion features, and then some different kinds of beat repeats with random glitch parameters. The random glitch on the beat repeat, if you get like 5 of those stacked in a row, you get a really, really delicious sound. And to open up the chain here, we've got one beat repeat, which is this first one, and then these are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beat repeats in a row to create this random glitch. So now, as I record, I'm gonna just start hitting my random button. Best new feature of Live 11, and it's gonna spew out some crazy stuff. So let's go ahead and start our recording, and we will find our friend. Let's go ahead. Cool, so we have all kinds of toms coming out of here. Let's go ahead and hit those 12 notes. Chaos, just chaos. Go up on all of our steps here. Go ahead and turn this baby back on and keep making noise. Sweet, you get the idea. You make a bunch of noise, and then how do you make that noise useful? Drag out the entire sample, loop it, and pull it across your entire composition as a thread, waiting to be woven into the fabric, the tapestry of the music that you're making here. Let's go ahead and loop it. Let's pull it all the way across, and then we can just deactivate and plug in our little fills where we might need them. And I think this would be a good place for a fill. Usually every 4 and every 8 bars, you want to have a quarter note and a half note fill to break up the repetition and tedium of the actual drum loop. And when you have a fill land, it's nice to take away the kick and the snare. Maybe not so much the snare, but definitely the kick, because fills, particularly tom fills, are such full frequency samples that they don't play nice with kicks. They want to land in their own little independent vacuum of silence. So let's go ahead and see if we lock this, and we probably won't. Yeah, no, it's so whack. So this is why we start to create way more than we're ever going to need. We spew out way more ideas than we're ever going to need, letting Ableton do the heavy lifting of coming up with all these random sequences, and then all we have to do is apply the iterative sequence for it. So we could iterate right here. This is going to be iteration 1 with this little space. I'm going to duplicate the friend group over. In our last moment, we have to change. Let's go ahead and find a nice cool sample with our scrub icon, and we'll do that nice glitchy kind of thing. Let's check that out. Okay, yeah, I would dial that in a little bit more intensely for an actual composition. Sweet. So another little bit of random usage that I would like to show you is kind of touching on what I was just talking about, where you're using macros to randomize different parameters. So in these chords here, let's go ahead and turn these on. These are just a couple of chords playing the key of our song. Nothing super special. But below it, I have a couple of duplicates of the same exact sound. And I'll play this with the chords so we get an idea of what's going to happen. Oops, we've got a lot of toms going on. I was like, wow, that drum beat is super busy. Let's deactivate that and check this out again. Cool, so that's what these chords are doing.
When I first started in the dojo, total newbie, had no idea what I was doing, and I remember I was putting reverb on my kicks, which is not always a bad thing I've learned, but I was like reverbing my kicks out, and I was like reverbing my drums out, and looked at the year-long package, and I'm like, you know what, I'm ready for this. Let's just jump in and commit to it. So I jumped in for 1 year, and I'm like, okay, I have 12 months. I saw the belt system and I'm like, okay, like this is some kind of progression. Let's just like get after the belts and start working. Started like crushing the weekly download. Just honestly, just like seeing that moment happen from when I first started in the dojo as a white belt. It really was a process of learning to trust, well, to grow as a producer and to like trust my own skill set and to like believe in my own music. So I've had some really cool opportunities with music. So big ups to the whole dojo and big thanks to you, Dylan.
Heck yeah.
Cool, so that's what these chords are doing, and I want to get all kinds of articulations out of this chord progression. I don't just want it to sound like my keyboardist fingers are kind of hitting the keys in the same way every single time. So there's a few formulas that you can set up for doing this. And the first is create a duplicate channel with all of your different macros on Serum tied to the macro knob and record yourself creating a bunch of different variations by hitting that randomization tab. So we're going to create a little loop here. I'm going to tell this to take input from our chords music, and if you just type the first 3 letters inside any drop-down box inside of Ableton, it will locate it for you. So if I'm looking for the beat, all I have to do is type the beat. If I'm looking for the kick, I have to type the kick. But in this case, we're looking for the chords, the mapped chords, the macroed chords. So let's go ahead and start recording. And what we're going to do is I think I'll probably legato these all across, select all the notes, legato them so that they take up some more time in our timing profile, maybe even shorten our loop here so that way we don't have any dead space whatsoever. And let's go ahead and start to record. Now, as I record, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with these randomizations. And each one of these different macro knobs has been tied to a different instance inside of Serum, to a different parameter. So we can play with the morphing, which is on these filters and LFOs over here. We can play with the wobble, which is going to turn on some wobbling. We have our filter open that we can affect, as well as the filter mix, so that might not be on all the time. Basically, we can play with the envelope. We can just play with all kinds of different parameters in here, and this process gets super badass when you map every macro to a different parameter. So 16 macros all on one instance of Serum being used in a really random way. Let's go ahead and check it out. We got our loop roll in here, and I'm going to start to record. I'm going to turn off these this other music so it doesn't get too convoluted. Let's go ahead and start to play. Cool, and now let's start randomizing. Okay, none of this is that great. There we go, there's some variations. It's also because it's super quiet. Cool, so a great way of getting all kinds of different filter articulations or envelope articulations is randomizing the macros in this regard. That one didn't come out that well. Sometimes you don't win them all. Now, in this next instance, it's going to be a very similar thing. I'm going to take our whole MIDI clip and pull that all the way down over here, and we're going to resample in the same location on the same channel. Let's just go ahead and pull this over there and deactivate it. Now, in this instance, what I want to demonstrate is what's called the super filter. And the super filter is something that you get by creating all kinds of different filters. Map them to this morph mode settings. That way you can rotate through all the different morph positions and get all kinds of variations of filters. And then I have tied on LFOs with the beat unsynced to the frequency. So every time I press random, every one of the filters in here is going to change ever so slightly. And then on the actual chain selector, this thing is going to hop around in a different place with the randomizer as well, picking a different output, picking a different outcome. So the super filter is a super useful way of getting all kinds of chord and flutter and future house articulations on a sustained sound. Works well on basses, works well on vocals, worked well in pretty much every context. So let's go ahead and hopefully this gives us a better result, because that last one was a total headache and disappointment. And let's go ahead and see what comes out. Oh, I guess we gotta turn it on, derp. Let's go ahead and activate that, and we're gonna have to get this to come from CH Super Filter. Let's go ahead and start our recording. Yeah, that's not very good. Let's go ahead and start hitting random. There we go. Cool. So you do this for 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on your state of mind. Whenever I'm not feeling very creative and may have had a little bit too much to smoke/drink, this is what I'll do, is I'll save my time in these nighttime sessions by making a ton of different melodic, bass, drum, Mudpies that I saved in my user library and can pull out again as needed in a later date in a later location. So Super filter, very, very useful. Now, another thing that I want to show you as far as randomicity is concerned is I would like to show you the super delay. And this is an instance of delay where I have all kinds of different delays in different parallel chains here, with a reverb at the very end, just kind of making them all have the same kind of spatial dimensions, and an EQ trimming out certain harsh frequencies. Now, the super delay is another thing that is really, really cool when you randomize. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this onto our chopped segment here that we were liking the best. We're going to create another resampling channel that we can super delay out, and this is going to spew out all kinds of other articulations to help dazzle our music and make it a little bit more interesting. All of this is being spewed out randomly. So let's go ahead, solo our sound, and we're going to just start playing with different delay icons in here. Let's go ahead and tell this to take input from 19. Boom, there it is. We will resample, and away we go. Hope that's not copyrighted. You can just play with the knobs as you want to. Cool, so you get the idea. So with the super delay running, all I have to do is hit one button over and over and over again. It's the best way to make music. You're not using that much of your brain power here. So I think that's most of what I want to talk about today. Now, the last thing that I want to present to you is doing this kind of randomization process, but on the entire master channel, so that as you record your whole song, after it's been mixed, of course, you can get all these extra articulations, slowdowns, scratches, and stops that will be really dazzling as turnarounds, as fills, and as kind of just general interest builders for specific checkers. So let's go ahead and look at that one more time. I'm going to go ahead and turn these off. I have all this material. If I want to put some of it in, all I have to do is deactivate this and checkerboard this little bit into position, and we will have a little bit of a delayed articulation on our sound here. Let's go ahead and activate that and check it out in the context of the mix. Oh, we've still got the super delay on. Make sure to deactivate that. There we go. Cool, so now we have a variation in there. Going to make this track a little bit more interesting. Sweet. Now, let's go ahead and look at this as it applies to the master channel. So I am using the Skrillex busing template, so I'm just going to grab my instrumental channel and resample that as opposed to the master itself, which I try and not touch. And let's go ahead and find, we could do the super filter, but honestly I'm going to use a third-party plugin here because this delivers the best results. Now, this is not an endorsement of these people. Any third-party plugin would work. Anything at all would work. Your limit is your imagination. But I will say that the Cable Guy's slow down and stop time parameter is one of the highest fidelity ones I've heard on the market. So I'm a really big fan of their time parameter here. Let's go ahead and resample out our actual track. And as we resample, I'm gonna just start messing with it, slowing it down, starting it, restarting it, etc., etc. And away we go. Whoops, I'm hearing something going on that is not supposed to be in our mix, and it's these guys. Goodbye, friends. There we go. Let's do that one more time. I'm just hitting presets. Sometimes I'll randomize them and do stuff like this as well, but you know, most of the time, just kind of play around in here, have fun. Oh, that was cool. Let's try stutter one. That's a good little fill. Those are good. Cool, so anyway, you do this a bunch, 15, 20, 30 minutes, as long as you feel like, and now I can just checkerboard this in as a fill or an articulation into a specific space by muting my master channel or doing the crossfade from A to B. So I'm going to be lazy today, and I'm just going to use a utility to mute everything for the sake of brevity. I know we have a bunch of other presenters, and I can't wait to see them, so I don't want to take too long. I'm going to just pull this down. I'm going to turn this on and off when I want there to be a mute. So let's go ahead and turn that on right there, so we'll get a little mute, and we'll checkerboard in our resampled position here, and we can, of course, scrub around and audition for the one that we like the most. Let's just do this at random and see what we like. Let's check it out, see how this transitions. Oops, we got to hear everything. Come on, friends. And we'll turn off Shaper Box on our instrumental channel. Here we go. Nice. Now we have a cool little transition like that. So hopefully some of these techniques were useful and will be useful for you in your own workflow. My whole point is that by applying that iterative sequence to just about any bit of noise is going to turn it from noise into music. And I encourage you to offload a lot of your mental brain power to Ableton, to the robot, and let the robot come up with a bunch of random ideas for you that then you, as a producer, only have to curate to find the gold nuggets. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a huge blast. My name is Cryptochronica, and I'm sure I will see you again later.
It's like that.